Welcome to the reading of The Word Shop. The envelope was thick. Lila turned it over in her hands, brushing her thumb over the familiar, elegant handwriting that looped across the front. Her name, nothing more. No return address, no stamp, just Lila. She had almost missed it, tucked between the pages of her favorite poetry book. How did it get here? Carefully, she peeled open the flap and pulled the single card out inside. Lila, my dear, I would love for you to join me for tea at my shop. There is a word here I believe belongs with you. With love, grandmother. A word? She read the note again, something inside her stirring like the first flicker of a candle's flame. Her grandmother's bookshop. She had been meaning to visit since she had arrived in the city, but time had slipped past her, lost in the rush of university, new routines, and the quiet loneliness of being somewhere unfamiliar. But now, this invitation, and the way her grandmother had written it, like the word was already waiting for her, as if it had been waiting all along. She thought that she should feel silly for how much that idea intrigued her. Instead, she folded the note carefully and tucked it into her pocket, as if it might change somehow if she left it out too long. She would go. The next afternoon, just as the sun began its slow descent into the quiet street that she had never noticed before, it curled away from the city's busyness, lined with ivy-covered brick buildings that felt like they had stories of their own. And there, nestled between a florist and a cafe, was the Word Shop. The windows were fogged just slightly, the glow inside casting shapes of books and shelves and something else, something she couldn't quite name. Above the door, an old brass bell swayed in the faintest breeze, waiting to chime. Lila hesitated. She wasn't sure why. Then, drawing a steady breath, she reached for the handle and stepped inside. The bell overhead rang, not the sharp tinny kind she expected, but something softer, lower, warmer. It lingered in the air, wrapping around her like a melody half remembered. And then the scent, ylang ylang, exotic, warm, floral. The same scent her grandmother had worn when she was little, when she would press her face into her shoulder and breathe in the comforting fragrance. The scent of summer afternoons in her grandmother's sunlit sitting room, of whispered bedtime stories, and laughter floating like music through open windows. It wrapped around her now like a memory she hadn't known she was missing. Lila took a slow breath and stepped deeper into the shop. The shelves stretched high, filled with books of all sizes, some worn at the edges, others with gilded spines that gleamed in the flickering lamplight. The air carried a hush, as if the words inside these books were waiting, listening. There were small shelves with glowing jars of words. She recalled how her grandmother loved words. The jars seemed to hum and sparkle, dancing reflections on the polished wooden floor. A counter stood in the middle of the room, its surface scattered with scrolls, ink bottles, and tiny glass dishes filled with liquid light. And there, at a round wooden table near the window, sat her grandmother. She looked just as Lila remembered, her silver-streaked hair falling in soft waves. Her twinkling green eyes, warm and knowing, met Lila's with quiet delight. 2 cups of tea were set out, waiting, and between them, placed on the table, was a single ivory card. A word was written on it. Her grandmother wrapped her arms around her as she had since she was a child. Her hugs always felt like liquid sunshine, and Lila rested her head on her grandmother's shoulder, basking in her love. Her grandmother studied Lila for a moment, then, like it had been no time at all since they last visited, asked, "And what have you been learning at university, my love?" As they sat down, Lila shared, "Mostly anatomy this term, cellular biology, physiology, how the body works." "And tell me, what is the most interesting thing you have discovered?" her grandmother smiled. Lila let out a soft laugh. Well, it is that the body is made mostly of water. Her grandmother lifted her brows. 70%, give or take, Lila continued. I thought it was all bones and muscles and organs. Do you remember our summers at the lake? Her grandmother asked. Lila nodded, fondly recalling swimming for hours with her sisters and her grandmother. Do you recall learning how water listens? Lila did not recall this at all. Water listens? Her grandmother nodded, stirring her tea slowly. Water responds. It remembers. It carries the imprint of everything it touches. She lifted her spoon and let a single drop of tea fall into her saucer. A single word can change its pattern. Lila watched as the tiny drops spread, forming delicate ripples across the surface. People think words are just sounds, her grandmother continued, but they are shapes too. Water shows us this. When you speak to it with love, it forms delicate, intricate patterns, beautiful and harmonious. But if you speak with anger and fear, she trailed off, shaking her head. Her grandmother set the spoon down gently. Do you remember how the lake looked under the full moon? And Lila's eyes softened, like glass, glowing, rippling with light. Exactly. Water reflects whatever it is near. The moon, your hand, your laughter, even your thoughts. It listens and then it mirrors. The water in your body does the same. It doesn't argue or resist. It simply receives the message and shapes itself accordingly. She tapped her teacup thoughtfully. But it's more than a mirror, Lila. Water remembers. It's a living crystal recording the vibration of every word, every feeling, every story it carries. That's why what you say to yourself and to others matters more than you know. Her grandmother watched her quietly, waiting, letting the moment settle the way a pebble settles to the bottom of a still pond. Then she spoke again, her voice like the hush before dawn. Now tell me, have you learned in your classes what affects the water inside you and how you must care for it? Lila shook her head slowly. It's still missing from most medical schools, her grandmother said. But if you are to be a great doctor, you will heal your patients much faster with this wisdom. Her grandmother's voice softened, steady and sure. Words, my dear. Lila stared at the saucer, mesmerized. It felt familiar, but she still didn't understand. Words shape us, her grandmother continued. They're not just something you speak. They're something you become. She smiled gently. Words change everything. But water? Water is one of the few things that lets us see their effect. Lila asked, what kind of words? Two kinds, her grandmother replied. She placed a hand gently over her heart, the ones that come from here, the ones that rise from the deepest part of you, the wisdom that has always been with you, the whispers of your heart. Do you remember when I taught you this? You were only 6. Lila swallowed and shook her head. She did not remember. And the other kind? Her grandmother tilted her head. The learned ones, the ones that don't belong to you. They chatter in your mind, full of what others have said, what the world has taught you to believe. These often become louder than the heart's whispers. Lila thought of the noise in her head, the lists, the doubt, the expectations. It was always too loud. But her grandmother was reminding her about something she had long forgotten. The soft pull she sometimes felt when she stood in stillness. The way her heart ached, not in sadness, but in longing when she saw something truly beautiful. The quiet certainty in moments where there was no logic, only knowing. Grandmother slid the ivory card across the table to Lila. Whisper. Your heart whispers in a language older than words. The first language, the one beneath all others. As the universe whispers its wisdom, you remember that you have always known this language. Whisper, she murmured, looking at the word that was waiting for her. Grandmother, what does this mean? Her grandmother smiled, lifting her teacup. She took a slow sip, set the cup down before speaking, her voice sure. You are swimming in a sea of wisdom, my love, and it speaks to you as a whisper. Turn the word over and you will see what I mean. Lila turned the ivory card over. On the other side was a beautiful line drawing. She knew immediately this was the image of the word whisper in water. She felt a flicker of remembrance from the stories her grandmother used to tell her as she fell asleep. A sea of wisdom, she echoed. Her grandmother smiled, yes. She set her teacup down. Wisdom comes from the inside out. It is the spiritual knowledge that lives deep in your heart, the gift of your soul. She lifted her cup of tea, inhaling the steam before continuing. But intellectual knowledge, that comes from the outside in. It is what is learned, memorized, collected, the gift of your mind. Lila let the words wash over her, inside out, outside in. What happens when we confuse them? She asked quietly. Her grandmother smiled, tilting her head. Then we forget to listen to the whispers inside of us, and we start chasing after the noise from outside instead. Lila exhaled, her fingers curling around her teacup. She thought about school, about the lectures and the essays and the endless pressure to know more, learn more, prove more. But this felt different. Wisdom is not something you collect in books or classrooms, my dear. It is something you already carry. You were very good at seeing this when you were young. Do you remember? Her grandmother reached behind her and pulled a small wooden box from the shelf. Inside were several photographs, each tucked between sheets of soft parchment. She selected 2 and slid them gently across the table. This, she said, tapping the first, is the crystalline imprint of the word whisper in water. I took this photo the day you turned 6 and you asked to spend it in my studio with me. Lila leaned closer. The image was beautiful, with many tiny little dots like they were spun from starlight, delicate, symmetrical, breathtaking in its quiet grace. She only vaguely recalled that birthday. Water remembers, her grandmother spoke softly. It listens. When loving, gentle words are spoken near it, the water forms these radiant, crystalline shapes. It's as if it knows how to bloom under kindness. Then she touched the second image. And this, she said, her voice quieter, is what happens when water receives a word like stupid. One of your classmates called you stupid the day before and you were upset. Words spoken in judgment from yourself or others may leave this kind of mark if you believe the words are true. Lila felt the image within that memory. The pattern was jagged and broken. There was no beauty in it, only distortion, like a mirror shattered under pressure. Her grandmother looked at her and continued, every word is an instruction, a vibration. And because your body is made mostly of water, every word you speak, especially to yourself, leaves a mark. It's not just emotion, it's structure, energy made visible. She placed her hand over Lila's heart. Speak like your words are painting the inside of your being, because they are. Lila stared at the 2 images side by side, one luminous and elegant, the other fractured and trembling. Her voice was barely a breath. Do all words leave marks like this? Her grandmother smiled as if she had been waiting for that question. Every single one, even the ones you don't speak aloud. Words, whispered in thought, murmured in memory, carried in silence, they all carry energy. And water responds to energy. It is the great reflector. She reached for the teapot and poured a fresh stream into Lila's cup. The steam curled upward in delicate spirals. And this is why I always bless my tea, she said, tracing her finger gently around the rim of the cup. A word of love, a thought of peace, a whisper of joy. Water listens, and when you drink it, it becomes part of you. Lila looked at the swirl of steam rising from her cup as if seeing it for the first time. So If I spoke kindness into my water, it would carry kindness into me. Her grandmother's eyes gleamed. Exactly. And not just into your body, into your mood, your mind, your choices, the way you treat others. You are not separate from your water, dear. You are water. She picked up one more photo from the box and handed it to Lila. This one showed the imprint of the word love. It was exquisite to look at. She could feel it too, as a loving embrace. She started to have a faint remembering of that birthday so long ago, and how the love she felt in her grandmother's studio erased the hurt of being called stupid at school. Lila let the warmth of the shop, the scent of ylang-ylang, and the quiet hum of something unseen settle around her. Lila looked down at the word on the card again. Whisper. It shimmered with new meaning, a call to tenderness, a remembering. Lila didn't say a word. She just stared, her heart swelling with something ancient and shimmering. She understood why her grandmother had called it a sea of wisdom. Thank you for joining me for Chapter 1 in the Word Shop. We'll see you here for Chapter 2.